Welcome to the Rusted Garden Homestead. It's Thursday night. I'm picking all the ripe tomatoes, and as I go through I'll give you some tomato tips, but it's a really big harvest. I'm probably going to have well over 100 pounds of tomatoes. Starting in this section, I just picked them. I'll show you what they look like. But these are tomato plants that I started in April. I used the vases, glass vases as cloches, and these have been producing really for the last 4 weeks. I've gone through three harvestings of these plants, 6 different plants in here, combination of indeterminate and determinate varieties. And if you subscribe to my channel, you can find more out about these plants. But they're doing extremely well, lots of green tomatoes. So let's walk over to the tomato hedge. I'm going to pick tomatoes from here. So this year I planted tomato plants about 1 foot, 12 inches, 16 inches apart. And I'm stringing them up just like that. And we're going to harvest all of these. These, again, is a mix of indeterminate and determinate variety of tomatoes. Your determinates will die out after they produce. Your indeterminates keep going. But this is just loaded with tomatoes, so we're going to take all of these off. We'll add them to the table. We're going to work our way down to the table in a second. All different colors. But this is really the second wave of tomatoes that I planted. The first wave was the one that we just passed. In here I have more of your traditional planting. These are about 2 feet apart. Going to harvest all of these. Just did a video. I am working with All America Selections this year, and I recommend you go to their YouTube channel, All America Selections Flowers and Vegetables. I'm doing tomato profiles, plant profiles, all kinds of different plants you can put in your garden. They don't run any garden ads there, so you can just get great information and look to see what plants you may want to try next year. These are all America Selection winners. This is a Juliet. Just took off 104 tomatoes from here last night. Chef's Choice Yellow, loaded. We'll be picking all of these. And again, these were planted more traditionally. Chef's Choice Black right in there. Taken a lot out of there. And I think this is the Chef's Choice Orange or Red. We got the Red Torch in there. Tons of tomatoes. So they're all going to get picked. So that was really my second wave of tomatoes. Coming in here we have wave number 3. This is the cherry tomato hedge. They're a little bit beat up from the heat that we just had, but nothing is really ripening yet. But this is going to be a massive hedge of cherry tomatoes. I think I have 15 different variety in there. So let's come on over to the table. I'll show you some more tomatoes I'm going to be picking. And again, we're going to have well over 100 tomatoes. These all came out of that first bed. Combination of, I think, Supersonic, Big Red Beefsteak, and Celebrity tomatoes. In here, I just watered this. This is a Greenstalk tower. I am affiliated with them. And if you go to their website, there's a link in the description. You can get this tower for growing tomato plants, flowers, peppers, anything you want. I have 3 towers. This was my experiment. 5 tiers. In the top, we have Tiny Tim tomatoes. We have Fantastico tomatoes in the back there, the smaller ones. Mid-size, indeterminate varieties down at the bottom. And this tower has been able to maintain all of these tomatoes. So up top, smaller tomatoes that are going to die out, determinate variety. In the middle, and again, well, just real quick, I planted a Tiny Tim in every pocket. I think there are either 6 or 8 pockets in here. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Well, we can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, 6 pockets. All filled with the determinants because they get small, so 1 pocket for those. As we came down towards the indeterminate variety, I put 1 indeterminate variety plant every other space. In some cases, maybe only 2 plants. But what I did was I just picked up the vines and then I pinned them into the open container so that they would root in. So 1 plant really, 2 plants started filling out all the spaces down here. If you drop the vines and make contact in soil, they're going to root out, and they have been doing really well. I mean, look at all the tomatoes in here. So if you want to grow vertically, I recommend this system, and again, you can find it in the description. We'll pick all of those. Let's go over to the next group of tomatoes. This is wave 3 of the tomato plants. In here, this was part of wave 1. These are determinate varieties, and they all have to get picked. I think that's a Mountain Gold maybe, or Siberian and a glacier. Tons of tomatoes. We're going to pick all of those. In the background there, you can see all my pepper plants. We're going to do a pepper video tomorrow and harvest all of those. We have wave 3 of indeterminate varieties, again spaced traditionally. Cut out about 10 inches of foliage from below to let the air circulate. No disease on any of these. All kinds of different varieties, including Cherokee Purple, large indeterminate varieties. So I've planted my tomatoes in waves. That's a strategy you can use too, because as diseases come into your area, early plants might be hit by the disease. Younger plants, for whatever reason, sometimes when they're growing, the diseases don't attach themselves. You just want continuous waves of production coming out of your garden. In here, that's the big Zac, which I did harvest the tomato that I've entered into the tomato grow-off, and it came in at just over 2 pounds. Wanted a 3-pounder, but I decided to just leave all the Zacs on there, not remove some of the tomatoes to get maybe a bigger tomato. I wanted to see what the plant can do. I'll walk over there in a second. It's pretty impressive. And my red beefsteak, they're just not quite ready yet in there. If we come over to the big Zac, I highly recommend that if you want to get 2-pound tomatoes, possibly a 3 or 4-pounder, but lots of 1-pounders. Just look at the size of all the tomatoes on there. Now again, I could have removed these and maybe I would have gotten my 3 or 4-pounder. I'm going to do that next year. But this is just loaded with large tomatoes, and more are on the way. It held up really well in the heat. All right, so I'm going to harvest everything I just showed you and just show you this massive amount of tomatoes. So here's pretty much the full harvest. I think I took out about 90% of the tomatoes. Probably 80 to 100 pounds there, all different sizes, colors, varieties, hybrids, heirlooms, you name it, they're in there. Picked some cucumbers too. Can't have a tomato cucumber salad without that. Some jalapenos to give it some zip. And I think I'll just finish up with the later end of my 3rd wave of tomatoes. I put in 6 more plants in here. They're starting to develop tomatoes. And again, these look healthier than some of the older tomatoes because when they're younger, I think they sometimes are a little bit more resistant to diseases and insects than some of the older plants. And we'll finish up with a 2nd wave planting. This is let me just take a quick look. This is a red beefsteak, and those should be ready in a couple of days too. Plant your tomatoes in waves, help them survive through insects and through diseases, through the heat, and you'll have tomatoes through the whole season in your garden. Thanks for watching. Please check out my seed shop at therustedgarden.com.